like to take this opportunity to thank everyone and offer my gratitude and appreciation for all of you for being here. I can see devotees of Rinpoche, very old devotees of Rinpoche's, friends and disciples, practitioners, and of course the venerables. I would like to take this opportunity to basically remind ourselves of what this day means. It is known to us that this day is a day to, from a universal point of view, a day to remember and celebrate also the life of a great being. Now, from a spiritual point of view, this day is a day where we remind ourselves of basically three most important deeds or activities of a great being, particularly that of a great and a realized Bodhisattva. That of course, His Holiness Kunzik Shamar Rinpoche, his life. So the three things being that, just like the Buddha himself, the very birth, which is very important. Unlike our rebirth, the rebirth of a Bodhisattva is supposed to be a conscious rebirth, a rebirth where the intention is to benefit sentient beings, and it is through that intent that they take the rebirth. And so we must utilize this day and time to remember that. And of course, as we all do universally, we try to remember the life of the great being, that being basically the activity, the legacy, the contribution that has been made to this world. Just like many, many great beings that we know throughout the history, in present day, the life of His Holiness Kunzik Shamar Rinpoche has been again a tremendous source of inspiration for all of us as devotees, followers, simply because of being able to protect, being able to preserve the very lineage that we know. Lineage being that of not just any lineage, of course, a lineage of compassion and wisdom, if you will. The teachings of Lord Buddha, the teachings that has survived, that has developed, that is developing as we speak for over 2,500 plus years. And such teaching has been brought to the various regions of the world. As we speak, of course, the very teaching has now reached globally, and it's benefiting countless of beings. With the message of compassion and wisdom, countless of beings are realizing the benefit of such timeless teaching, such timeless practice, a practice that doesn't require any effort at all. Simply by generating compassion, generating wisdom to others than ourselves, brings, first of all, great peace to ourselves. And that being so, it also benefits those who are around us. And this effect, of course, is timeless. It has been seen by the Buddha and by the Bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas meaning those who are about to become, or those who follows the way to become Buddhas, beings. So they have seen it, they have experienced it, they have realized it. And the very being that we are talking today, that of the Kunzik Shamar Rinpoche, is such. And the legacy that he has left is, as we see, the practitioners that is left, that is here, committing their time and energy into further development and further understanding of what we can achieve, how much we can contribute to others, all the good things that we know, that we talk about. And because he has preserved this lineage, we are able to share in it, we are able to practice it, we are able to live with it. Live with it meaning that somehow integrate in our daily life, integrate in our everyday hectic and busy life, and find some meaning out of this. And this is the teaching that he has preserved, which in this very materialistic and difficult time and world, it's extremely difficult to preserve due to what Buddha says, due to our emotions. Of course, the factor karma comes into play. It is a very strong force, a very powerful force that drives us to various limits. But nevertheless, by trying to understand the challenges of these karmas and afflictive emotions that we face every day, we will come to know, we actually understand how beneficial this practice of compassion and wisdom is. That it is the actual antidote to overcome these challenges. And so we have to remember what he has left for us, the very timeless and precious Buddha Dharma, and the understanding that we have for one another. So this is what we have to remember, and we have to make use of this opportunity, as previously Venerable Jigme Rinpoche has mentioned, the precious human body. It becomes this precious body, or this body becomes in some ways precious because the opportunity that we have. At the same time, it's fragile because of the afflictive emotions and the karmas that is there, evident. So I would like to ask all of you to take this opportunity to reflect on the meaning of the compassion and wisdom. How is the effect of this? How beneficial it is by embracing these qualities. And by doing so, then we will come to know what is the benefit of actually having presence of great beings, great bodhisattvas in our lives. Because without them, then these teachings has simply no way to survive, has simply no way to actually flourish. It is due to these bodhisattvas' activities and their lives and their dedication that is being preserved, these teachings are being preserved and shared and made available for all of us. If we experience any kind of peace, a sense of peace, be it physically, mentally, in any way, whatever the amount, whatever the magnitude, whatever we experience, any form of peace is all due to none other than the practice of compassion and wisdom. So therefore, this is something very important for all of us to remember. And now thirdly, as I said, just like the Buddha, the third important or most obvious deed or the activity is that of the parinirvana, or in simple terms, passing away. So therefore, his final teaching being the teaching of impermanence, how fragile, how impermanent our life is. So even though we may perceive this in a very mundane way, in a very worldly way, that just such event or such occurrence is just a part of daily life and nothing more. But in fact, this is something more than that. It should be received, it should be understood, it should be taken as a part of teaching, a part of actually direct teaching, yes. When such things occur, immediately it makes you contemplate and wonder about one's own well-being, one's own state. That if such a great being is able to pass away, then how about myself? How about others? And so therefore, it immediately brings that, not to say curiosity, but somehow that moment of reflection. So therefore, although, of course, it is difficult to digest, of course, such facts every time it occurs. For example, it could occur to someone very close to you, someone who's very influential to you, and when that happens, of course, it's very daunting, it's very emotional, it's very heavy. But nonetheless, there is something to learn from that, yes? In this case, meaning the passing of Rinpoche is simply a teaching, a way to remind ourselves of just how fragile it is, just how fragile our life is. So therefore, I would also like to ask you to equally take in, absorb the experiences you've had, and not let go of that experience, and somehow, let's say, be absorbed by our daily tasks and daily involvements, you know. So, because there is great wisdom in that, by remembering, how to say, the impermanence of every aspect of life, yes, every change of one's own way of thinking, one's own way of being, one's own way of behaving, and so on. So by focusing on these aspects, it gives us greater wisdom. The wisdom is not something that is gained from somewhere out there, but it is gained from within, from such experiences that you actually feel it from within. So by focusing on it over and over again, which is called a practice, of course. And for that, of course, you have to give yourself time, be a bit more consistent in a way, meaning that you give time to for this experience, for this understanding, for this wisdom to grow. So therefore, by doing so, then it becomes something timeless. It becomes something limitless in a way. Timeless meaning that it doesn't get exhausted. Whereas in a materialistic aspect, after some time, it has its own limit. It has its own end. So whereas in this case, if you're focusing on these qualities that we have, it's timeless. So therefore, it's, I think, very crucial and very important for all of us to utilize these moments, these precious moments that has been given to us. And of course, today being a very special occasion because it marks the anniversary of 1 year of the parinirvana of His Holiness Kunzi Shama Rinpoche. And for this very occasion, we are fortunate enough to have the bone relics, which is very special. For most of us, maybe it's difficult for us to comprehend the significance of the bone relics. The bone relics are one of the many signs or proofs of actually a being is a great being, not just a being, but a great being. Great being meaning that also not someone who's born as great being from the beginning, of course. Just like the Buddha himself began from a very ordinary state of, let's say, life or circumstances, just like ourselves. But over the course of time, due to their sheer quality and dedication, they have excelled and they have transcended in their qualities of compassion and wisdom. And due to that, then not only, of course, their the true essence, which is the consciousness, actually develops from an emotional state into an enlightened state. But not only that, as a result, even the physical state itself is also equally affected in a positive way, of course. Meaning that then during such cases when the consciousness then departs from this world, let's say, yes, then the very remaining of the physical body also leaves marks, signs of actually the very conscious or the very consciousness actually has compassion, has actually wisdom. As a sign, often there are remains. Normally when we cremate a body, of course, we all know that, of course, at the end the fire consumes everything, yes, and nothing can remain there. It's a fact. But because of their understanding and abilities, actually remains are left. And it is said that when the remains are left, it means that the disciples or the followers or the practitioners have a certain karmic connection with the being who has passed away, a positive one, yes. And due to that, as a source of receiving blessing, as a source of actually receiving inspiration, then remains are left. Sometimes remains such as the eye faculties or the tongue faculties, or let's say, the physical remains of those are left simply due to the activity of that very being. Having meditated or having recited, let's say, pure speech, having practiced pure speech. If a heart is remaining, it means that it has practiced bodhicitta. If a tongue is left behind, it means the being has practiced pure speech. If the eyeballs are left, it means that the individual has practiced on visualization of pure view. So equally, various remainings that are left with the relics, of course, which comes in various forms, they also represent actually a source of blessing. And so therefore, I think it is very correct to say that we are all very fortunate, and we can consider ourselves very, I don't like to use the term lucky, but definitely fortunate to have the remains actually remaining for us to actually gain blessing from it. And so therefore, a part of the relics has been now installed here in this very temple. And so therefore, everyone should also take blessing and offer prayers. Yes? Unlike the way we celebrate in a universal way of someone who has passed away, in a spiritual aspect, particularly that of passing of a great being, actually it's not just a way to remember the person, but more than that, to call for their blessing, to call for their inspiration, to call for their wisdom, for their understanding. And by doing so, there is again something else, something more than material. There's something again timeless that we can absorb again. And this goes a long way. So therefore, I'm glad that many of us are here. I know that many of us, there are many other of us who are not able to come here due to the very fact that the tragic fact that has occurred in the region of Nepal and so on. And so therefore, of course, they are not able to be here today. But I appreciate and I rejoice in the fact that those of us who are here, we are able to utilize this moment to call for their blessing. And most importantly, of course, now, one fact that we have to know about the Rinpoche is, of course, is a reincarnated being. Yes, and that is, again, a very important factor. A tradition that has begun back in Tibet, a tradition within Buddhism, of course, within the Tibetan Buddhism, a tradition where, in order to benefit the sentient beings, in order to continue the lineage that has been brought from this land, this nation, your nation here in India, the teachings that have been brought all the way back over the Himalayas, back to the Tibet, in order to preserve it, then a tradition or basically almost like a culture, let's say, of actually the very being reincarnating over and over again in order to continue the lineage, in order to benefit these ancient beings. Such tradition has begun. And therefore, the very remains of this very Rinpoche, as we all know, the Kunzi Shama Rinpoche, is that of the 14th reincarnation. And so therefore, we shall also utilize this moment to also pray from the bottom of our hearts for a swift return of the 15th reincarnation. Yes. So I would like to ask all of you to join me in this prayer, which will also last starting from tomorrow for more than a week, with the practice of what is known as Chakra Sambara, and it is a practice and a tradition that we have kept for centuries. And so, of course, all of you are most welcome to join. But at the same time, of course, today is equally a very special day. So therefore, I would like you to pray and to receive the blessings from the relic. And lastly, I would like to offer my thanks and gratitude for all those who have come. I know it's a very, busy day, busy schedule, hectic engagements and so on. But nevertheless, you took the time to come here. So we have venerables and monks and nuns who have come here, devotees, of course, older acquaintances of Rinpoche, as well as also we have today, I think, from the Bhutan Embassy as well as from the Nepal Embassy, we have also their representatives, and I very much appreciate also for their coming as well. And not only that, we have students coming from all over the world, and I really appreciate, because I know how hard it is for all of you to take the time to come here, especially when it's this hot, when it's this long. So thank you so much. And to all of you, may we all benefit sentient beings, and may we all generate compassion and wisdom. Thank you, and Namo Buddhaya.
聆听噶玛巴珍贵的法语，让我们从失去上师法王夏玛巴仁波切的悲伤之中获得解救，因为噶玛巴让我们知道死亡的真相，也再一次提醒诸位，生命是无常的。在无常的生命中，最珍贵的是与上师形影不离，因为上师已住在我们每一个人的心中。